Welcome to the high stakes arena of web application testing, where ethical hackers don their digital detective hats to explore the complex labyrinths of websites and web services. It's a thrilling phase filled with probing, poking, and uncovering hidden vulnerabilities that could be gateways to cyber threats. Think of it as the cybersecurity equivalent of an adventurous expedition, where every nook and cranny of web application is scrutinized to ensure its resilience in the face of potential attacks. We will look at various fundamental concepts related to web app pen testing on a high level, such as the OWASP Top 10, the web suite framework, various vulnerabilities such as SQL injections, cross-site scripting, directory traversal, and command injection. All of this will be summarized because this is an extensive topic. So without further ado, let's head to the practical portion of this topic. Hi, welcome to the practical demonstration of web app penetration testing. This will be a high level overview of how we can conduct penetration test on web applications. We won't go into much detail. We'll cover most of the essential things, but from a top-down view, from a high level, because this is an advanced field that requires a lot of deep dive if we want to cover all of the vulnerabilities and concepts when it comes to web application penetration testing. So I will just keep it brief and summarized. So our first concept is OWASP. So what is OWASP? We can open our browser and search for it. OWASP Foundation for Open Source Worldwide Application Security Project, or previously known as Open Web Application Security Project, is a non-profit organization that is committed to making web applications and mobile applications or anything that is related to development and coding secure. And what and how does it achieve that? Basically, uh, the thing that concerns us the most is a list which is called the OWASP Top 10. So, what is OWASP Top 10? This list or document basically every 4 years, the last release document was in 2021, but every 4 years, OWASP actually launches or releases a document called the OWASP Top 10. And it is very specific, it is quite specific to web applications, but most of the things also apply to mobile applications. But because this is web application penetration test, so we'll cover just things related to the web applications. So every 4 years, OWASP releases this document and it contains, based on a survey and the any information OWASP has basically collected. We don't know the process, but the and actually they have mentioned here from the survey. So we don't know how they conduct the survey, but they actually have a list which based on their way of collecting information. Based on that, how they do that. But uh, it can be a survey or anything. But based on that information, they devise a list which has the top 10 vulnerabilities during that era. So basically, the last list was launched or released in 2021, and next release is sure to be certainly is coming in 2025. So we follow the was 2021 for now. So the last list that came in 2021 had the top 10 vulnerabilities from 2017 to 2021. And this trend doesn't shift that much. Basically, as you can see, there are a lot of vulnerabilities in the off was 2017 version. Uh, which have which are still in the list, but their ranking has been changed, or they have also merged some vulnerabilities based on their based on their similarities, and they have made new categories which contain previous vulnerability, more of the previous vulnerabilities under one category. So what how does it help us is that uh, as we have known in our previous sessions that there are many ways to exploit an application, not even web application. We can also exploit network applications, mobile applications, and there are numerous applications, and we can exploit them. So OWASP top 10 helps us in a manner that because of the existence of numerous vulnerabilities, we cannot focus on every one of them. And because web applications are mostly, in most cases, are not just created by organizations but individual developers or teams that cannot afford penetration tests and things like that because it costs so much. So it is efficient that uh, every developer should be given a list that is objective and agreed upon in a manner uh, that is efficient, so that when they are making their application or developing an application, they can know what kind of vulnerabilities are currently affecting the web applications, the top 10 vulnerabilities, and they can secure their applications from them. So this makes the developing job very easier, and base and this also helps security professionals like web application penetration testers that we can secure pre-existing applications or the applications uh, which are being worked upon currently by testing them uh, with the help of or through this document. So that was the basic purpose of WASP top 10. And now we will take a brief look at the vulnerabilities. And these are ranked currently based on their exploitation and you can say their exposure rate. And OWASP has a thing called CWE, Common Weakness Enumeration, which actually shows that how many, what this is related to CVE, which is used commonly for vulnerabilities, which is common vulnerabilities and exposure rating, which actually is assigned, that number is assigned to any vulnerability that is exposed on the uh, in the public domain. And CW is similar to that. So there are just 34 categories related to our first vulnerability, which is broken access control. And this was fifth in the 2015 edition, as you can see. But uh, in the last, in the 4 years between the 2017 and 2021 version, 94% of the application were tested for some form of broken access control. And we will go uh, in a bit detail about all of these vulnerabilities. But now we will firstly, we will just look at some other vulnerabilities. The second one is cryptographic failures. This was number three, and it came under sensitive data exposure. But now it is part of a new category called cryptographic failures. So this is related to all the cryptographic things like certificates or encryptions or encoding, things like that. And because this is an open source document and security is always growing, so they're always adding new stuff, adding new knowledge, and coming to different things. It's a scientific approach. They're always experimenting with stuff and coming to new conclusions. So they whenever they have a paradigm shift, they implement those changes to this list. So as they're saying that this was previously known as sensitive data exposure, which was a broad symptom rather than the root cause. So say they basically when they categorize this vulnerability as sensitive data exposure, it was a symptom, not the root cause. They have found out during those 4 years that sensitive data exposure is due to cryptographic failures. So that's why they have named it as such. Then we have injection. This covers HTML injection, code injection, SQL injection, every kind of injection vulnerability uh, comes under this. Then we have insecure design, security. We will have some practical demonstration on a basic level because each of this vulnerability is in depth, and we can like do 2 to 3 hour video sessions on each of the vulnerability, and still we won't be able to cover everything. So I will just cover some of the vulnerabilities, most known ones, and that too on a basic level for knowing. And when we are in the later stage of the session and our closing stages of the video, I will share some uh, resources that the students can look further after they're done with this course. If they're interested in web application development, they can, because this is just an appetizer. They can look at those resources and build their expertise. And those are resources that have helped me a lot in my journey. Every great web application tester, bug bounty hunter, which is a field of web application testing, recommends those resources. So I will do the same, and those that will surely help you, because uh, not just for this video, but for any video, practice makes perfect. So cybersecurity is all about practice and renewing your knowledge. Things are always changing. This is a great example of cybersecurity of us, because as you can see, everything uh, is follows a scientific approach. Always new data and new information is always adding up, and things evolve according to that. So that should also be the same. That should also be the same method that the student should follow in this field, that they should always keep on learning and improving. It's a lifelong process, and it could not be much. It could not be more true in case of application testing. So I will share those resources, and you guys can look at those, and those will surely help you become a good web application penetration tester. So this was OWASP top 10. We will, for example, we go to injection and we open it. And this also actually is very helpful during penetration tests, in the manner that when you have a list like that, you don't you're focused. You don't have to go all over the place. And this is actually from experience that I've also witnessed during my penetration test, that when you don't have something to start with, especially when you're new in the field as a beginner, uh, that that information overload can cause tunnel vision, and you might not be able to find anything, even though uh, you might have some clues on how to uh, extract information or how to walk around the application, uh, which I will talk about in detail some later in the video. But you need to have a goal, and OWASP top 10 actually gives you the goal. And you also need to have a methodology, and it also gives you a methodology, because when you're starting a penetration test, you can actually make sure and make a list, and then you can say, okay, I need to just look at broken access control. So everything that falls under broken access control, I will check for that on my target application. Then I will, when I'm done with that, I will look for cryptographic failures. When I'm done with that, I will look for injection. And this way you can check everything. You will walk around the application 10 times. Each time you are looking for a different vulnerability uh, category. But and this way, you won't miss out anything. And second, it will it will uh, make your penetration testing process very efficient, because it will be sequentialized. it will be in a sequence, it will be in a linear fashion, and it will become your penetration testing will become much smoother. You won't have any information overload. It's not like you are, for example, when you are, if you don't have worst top 10 and you're looking at a web application, you are like, okay, I found, what do I find? So randomly you are trying to find directory reversal, and then at some other page you found some kind of certificate. So now you are thinking about cryptographic failures. And on some page, okay, you say, okay, why should not I try SQL injection or cross-site scripting? And then with all of this information overload, you won't be able to find anything. So because of this information overload, you wouldn't be able to get started on any of the single, or you might not find anything unless it's a very low hanging fruit. But that would also be just a random luck based thing, not methodology. Because as a penetration test, it's not our job to hack things. We're not getting we're not in a competition to get some points or reward. That is something, also something very different. uh, a great difference between CTS and penetration testing. You are trying to secure the web application, so you need to check everything. So for example, you are part of a penetration testing team, and usually penetration testing is not a one thing one time. It is done in phases. So first time you're gonna find something, and then there gonna be another test by your team, or probably in most cases company conduct a third party assessment to see whether the local penetration tester or their primary team has not missed anything. So if you miss anything, especially any high critical vulnerability or a medium vulnerability, then it can be a problem, and or it can also affect your credibility. So as a penetration tester, if we have two jobs, we need to find anything that is critical, high or medium vulnerability that is affecting the application, and we don't want to miss anything. That actually increase in that way, you will, for yourself, you will have good credibility when it comes to your team, or during when it comes to your penetration testing assessments. And it will also help you, uh, because because of this methodology, you will have an easier time doing your penetration test, instead of if you are going freestyle. So that was just some tips for beginners in field, because that was just something you won't learn in books, textbooks, but just my 2 cents from my personal experience, but a very valuable one. So again, we were looking into injection. So this is, we know, common weakness enumeration. So it has basically, this is the mapping. However, I'm not going into detail, but basically this is how many CWEs, and you can also refer to CVE to understand what CWE is meaning in this context. So basically, this is the number of vulnerabilities that have a CWE name attached to them, that are found related to injection. So if you go into the overview, it will tell you about the injection, that it was actually the first in 2021 version, I guess. Yes, but now it is in third part. So the world is actually, the things are actually improving, but still, as you can see, that 94% of the application were still tested with this. So actually, if you that actually shows us that in 2017 it might be a bigger number than that, and that tells you that how many web application, if at third position it is still 94%, then how much more would it be, it how much more it was in 2017. And then there, just like we talked before, CWEs. So some notable common weakness enumerations, uh, and this is similar to the CWCVE. This is just a over thing that they have actually made a different term related to CVEs. CVE is the common industry standard, but when it comes to web, they are trying to make way for their own term, CWE. So CWE 79 is cross-site scripting, 89 is SQL injection. So basically, they have a broader category injection. and then they have some subcategories called they have called them CEW, but these are actually big vulnerabilities on their own. Cross-site script is SQL injection, external control of file or path name, and we will actually cover SQL injection and cross-site scripting on a basic level in this video. And this is the description. So this, as you can just as you probably understand by now, that uh, this OWASP is a treasure trove, and your go-to website or resource to find any information about web or mobile application vulnerabilities, but most commonly web. So this is all the information about injection, how they work, what kind of applications are affected by them, then their mitigations, how we can prevent them on a higher level. Again, if you are our developer or a coder, you will know better how to apply these things. But just to know, just on a high level, you will know that, for example, if you're owner of a company or an individual with a website, you can actually, if you know on a high level how these things are working, then you can apply them. Even as a penetration tester, if you don't know these things in detail, you can suggest these things to the developers who are working with you, for whose application you are testing. Then these are example attack scenario. This is a SQL query, and this is another scenario, which is another language, which is HQL, Hibernate Query language. Most of the time, you're gonna face SQL, and this is also SQL related, and it is using the union tag from SQL. Then there are references. You can list of map CVs, just like talked before. CWEs, just like we talked before, related to CVEs. The CWE, as you can say, these are basically CVEs but for web. So these are the common ones they have named. So OWASP is a great resource for this. And then you can do similar stuff with other melodies. You can also download them. Basically, this is the PDF version of OWASP 2017. And I'm sure if you try, you can also find the PDF for 2021 version. Or you can just go to this web, just open it here in the on the website. So that was all for OWASP. And the second very important thing in web application testing is how you're going to do web application penetration testing. In our initial reconnaissance videos, uh, videos related to network penetration testing, we talked about fingerprinting, we talked about subdomain enumeration, how we can find information about a web application. And those don't only cover normal network penetration testing, but also web application penetration testing. But web application testing is somewhat different in a way that you're not just checking for the software running on the web application, you are actually testing the web application. So, for example, we have this OWASP website and we want to test it. So, in our previous examples, if we were doing network penetration testing, we would stop at just doing some directory busting or fingerprinting it, checking uh, what kind of uh, CMS or what kind of language is being used by this application, on what server it is running. Uh, we could check those. What kind of web server it is running on, for example, Apache or Nginx. Server could be Ubuntu, Windows based. CMS could be WordPress, Drupal, Shopify, things like that. Language could be PHP, framework could be React, JavaScript could be the language. But a web application penetration tester does not stop there. And that's why I would just like to mention one thing, that that's why network and web application penetration testing are a bit different. Web application penetration testing is a bit specialized for web application, and that's why some if somebody asks you to test their website, you have to make the distinction. They have to make the distinction whether they want you to test the web application or they want you to test the network. If you were a network penetrating tester, you would stop at fingerprinting, subdomain enumeration, things like that. But when you when the web application is part of the scope and they want you to test it, then you're not going to stop there. You're going to check everything. So this is a search page input field. I can input data into it. This is in scope. This is a member login page. It is asking for email. I can test this. This is in scope. This store page button, donate button, join button, this search bar, everything is under scope. We won't just look at a glance or the basic overview. As a web application tester, we need to check out everything. And again, what is our reference? What are we gonna check? We use the OWASP top 10, and those are the things we're gonna check on the web application. And for that, we have tool, which is basically a framework uh, and a proxy. And I will explain that what that means uh, in terms of web application testing. It is called WebSuite. So WebSuite is a framework and a web proxy used to test web applications. And what what do I mean by a web proxy? It means that when we enter some data into it, our browser, this is our browser, this is Firefox. And for example, I enter this URL facebook.com and I click enter in the URL bar and it reaches Facebook. A web proxy basically comes between the application and my browser. So when I put data into my browser, it will be intercepted by the web proxy before being sent to the application and vice versa. When receiving the data, I can also intercept it with the proxy. And how does it help? It helps us in a way that we can actually modify those requests, which we can see. So here I'm just entering the URL, but a web proxy can actually show me what information is being sent on a lower level, on the application level, which is application level, which is hidden for a normal user. Normal user has nothing to do with. That is also something that you can just, for example, I open this inspection page, I see code here, and there are other things. There's a network console, which I can, as you can see, this is for Facebook, and this can be. So there are many things that are happening behind the scenes, which our browser is doing, but because those are unrelated to the user, so those are not shown to the user. This is called abstraction. Abstraction is something that if something is not relevant to the user, then it is not shown. We have a debugger, so we have some information that is, again, it is hidden, but this is what our uh, browser have about this website. We have things related to networking, and again, many other things, memory storage. We have cookies. Cookies is a concept that you should know if you are going to be into web application, and I'll share a resource that is very beneficial when it comes to web application penetration testing, because for this field, if you want to be successful, uh, you need to know about how web applications work and how different protocols, different things work in web applications. If you know them, just like in any other thing in cybersecurity, if you know the infrastructure, the architecture, uh, and how to secure them, then you can be a good cybersecurity expert. If you understand it, you can break it, and if you know how to break it, you can defend it. So all of this information is not being sent to us, shown to us, and most of the things we cannot temper, even using our wall. And again, because it is also, as you can see, a very decentralized and somewhat messy. If you want to do some, if you want to tinker with the web page, the web application, it is a bit hard. So that's why we have a web proxy. And burp suite is not just a web proxy, it has many other features. That's why it's a framework. There's also a tool by OWASP which is called Zap, which does the same thing. It is open source and free also, but burp is the industry standard. So in Kali, burp is built in. Burp has three editions actually. Burp suite community edition, which we're going to use, it is free. There are some things in it which are limited. And as a professional penetration tester, you would always use the Pro edition or the Enterprise edition. Pro edition is basically Burp with all the features. Uh, you need to buy a license for that, but it is worth the price. And it is just it has just all the features, unlike Community edition, which has limited features. But in our use case, Community edition is going to be fine. And then there's Enterprise, which is for enterprise. So yeah, it is a license made for companies to utilize it. It probably uses cloud. I have not much detail on that. I worked on with Pro Edition and Community Edition. So just type burp, and here we find it. Then we start it, and this is the first page we are welcome with. So burp, you can make new projects. If this was a Pro Edition, you could actually make every time you're testing an application, you make a project on it. That is best practice because every time you're gonna testing usually takes more than a day. It takes weeks and months. So you don't want to lose your progress, things you have found on your application. So and also you want to have a backup of all the findings you uh, observed in an application. So you don't want to lose them, and that's why we use the Pro edition. But in this case, because it's free, we can just make temporary. So this is just to give you this works also if we're doing a CTF or doing some little demonstration or doing something that does not require us to save the data. This is not a very lengthy penetration test, so we could use community edition just fine. So this is good for when you're using it for a quick look at a web application or doing a CTF or things like that. But in a real world scenario, if you're actually doing a penetration test, it is not recommended to use this because this temporary project, when we close burst it will lose everything we have found. So we don't want to do that when we're doing a penetration test because uh, that way we won't be able to achieve anything. So we'll just go on with that. And this is again something, if it was pro version we would have this option, but basically these are some configuration, and burp is very useful in a sense that we can actually configure it in a particular manner. We can actually configure it in a particular manner, and there's a thing called burp extension which we will talk about in a bit, and we can add more extensions and increase the capability of burp. So it is just your one it is just a all-in-one tool, your one place to uh, hack or test any web application. That's what burp is. Burp suite is. So I cannot ever emphasize enough the need and the importance of this tool. So we don't have to do anything. Even in most cases, in pro versions, we will use the defaults. And now we will start burp. So it is started, and we are welcome with this window. We will maximize it. So this is our dashboard. I will just give you a brief overview of this. Burp is uh, I can spend like an hour to just explaining burp. That's so great and advanced this tool is. Again, this that's what's called a framework. So we have our task. This is basically a thing called calling. Whenever we are using burp, and while run using Burp, we click on an application. Uh, just like in search engines, there's a crawler. Burp has a crawler, so it passively saves information about that application. You are just clicking on that application, apparently, but behind the scenes, Burp will capture every request and try to probe around the just like a just like a search engine does. If you have some information about how SEO works, or how web pages are ranked, that is something that there's something that is used by search engines called a crawler, which crawls into the website, not like a physical spider or biological spider, but in technical terms, it basically it works like a spider, and it just probes the application for information. And that's how basically the people who do SEO, they rank their pages high because they use the keyword that the search engine is designed to rank up, which is most commonly which are buzzwords and commonly searched words. And that's how the crawler determines, okay, I have to rank this site. uh, if the crawler finds it easier to probe it, or it finds more buzzwords, uh, most search words on the website, it ranks it up. And that is the same method being used by Burp. So we can also do a scan just like Nessus website. Burp has actually has its own vulnerability assessment scanner that can be used, and that can also be modified by using extensions to scan for vulnerabilities. So that's a good thing, but that is actually limited to pro version, as we can see here. And it also gives us information about vulnerabilities. So it is very beneficial because it finds a lot of vulnerabilities automatically. Again, as a web application tester, you have to test those, but uh, webs make a lot of your job easier. So this is just using a placeholder fake name just to fill in the information and to show you how this looks like the pro version. But this just means nothing in this version. This is all fake information. But if it was pro version, it would show you actual information about the web page, and it would you could filter those vulnerabilities based on their severity. You can high, medium, information low, and how certain is, but it is certain, firm, or tentative. In scope, basically, you can actually, if you are doing web application testing, you can actually, yeah, select a website under a scope. And what that means is that you just want to collect information about that website only and not other things. So that way, Burp does not grab garbage information. I will talk about that in later. And this event log, if you start anything on the on Burp, it's mentioned. For example, it is saying proxy server started. So when we start uh, Burp, this is the first thing that happens. So Burp has started on our local host on port 8080 proxy, which we talked earlier about, that it captures information from our browser and to our browser if we actually configure it that way. And generally, it will just intercept one-way traffic from our browser to the application. We can also set it up to capture two-way traffic. Then there's this option which is very important. This is basically our proxy. This is where our target is information stored. And before a year or 2 years ago, but we had to set up a proxy, especially on browser. There was an extension called Foxy Proxy. We had to use that, and that way, and install a special certificate from Burp to the browser to intercept traffic. But they actually made it easier. Now this they have a built-in browser in Burp now, which has the proxy settings installed, so we don't have to use anything outside, and we don't have to set up anything. So it has again made web application testing very easy, and everything is now contained in Burp. You don't have to do anything externally. But that was not the case a couple of years ago. So we can just press enter, and it actually uses Chromium, open source browser on which actually Google Chrome is based on. So if we search anything here, for example, example.com, and it is just an empty domain. And as you can see, it has cut the HTTPS and using the burp. So basically, this is showing us that the burp proxy is running. And we can just go here and you can see that we have a lot of information here. Burp is capturing stuff about the example.com website, and it is showing the request our browser has sent and the response of the application. This is the raw form. If you have, of course, you need to have information about how web application work, how the HTTP protocol works, how the what is get request. This is the website name and how these different headers work. You need to understand that. For example, it is showing us that our platform is Linux, browser in Mozilla, and this is the user in which tells us what the browser is, what is the text type, and this is just a brief overview. So I won't go into detail. All of this information is needed uh, for you to be a good penetration tester, and I will share a resource regarding that. And this is the output in PT and raw. Basically, this means that uh, the information is basically how this application is seen by the browser in a technical terms, and we also need to uh, utilize it in the coded form, and we also need to observe it in that way to find vulnerabilities. And PT is this is also a option which can be found in the pro version, that it actually makes it easier to read. And then we can also see the hex version, and this is basically how the data looks like in hex, and we can actually click on the code and rest. So in some use cases that is also helpful, but we won't go into detail about that. And then we can also render it. So as you can see, that is the thing that is being seen here. So this is basically the web application in its how it looks on the browser, how it's displayed on the user, not in its coded form, but in its abstracted form. So we can use this. And again, this is just a brief overview. Issue definition, this is related to different vulnerabilities. So this is basically a knowledge base about different vulnerabilities. SQL injection, you can find it just like OWASP, its remediation, references, type. So basically, again, if you are concerned with how to rate your vulnerability and what are the mitigations, if you find SQL injection, you can know, okay, man, what is the, if I find SQL injection, you are like, okay, what does it mean? You can understand it from here. Okay, what do I have to do to remediate it? There are references for it, how the application works on a technical level. And if you want to rate it, then you can actually uh, get a hint that okay, SQL injection is mostly high, so I need to rate it high. And I won't go into much detail. I think the things I'm covering right now are enough just to get, you can say, just to test the waters, just to get uh, just to get a feel of this penetration testing domain, which is web application penetration testing. Now I will go into proxy, and this is the proxy that is working behind the scenes. And as you can see, we can go into, this is where we actually open the browser, and I will go into this later. So HTTP history is very important. Basically, every time you uh, visit an application in this browser, in the web browser, the application will record all of the information regarding it. And you can apply different filters, but I won't go into detail about that. For example, we have the IP, and because this is a simple web page, we just when we pressed enter after entering the URL and visited the domain, so not much has happened. It went to the website using the get method. It received the website, and it also showing us the IP address, our listen port of the proxy, domain title example, and a favicon.ico. Basically, web developers know it better, but this is an icon file which is being which shows the icon of the domain here in the tab. So that's also something that it has picked up. And because we don't have anything else on the website, so it has not found anything else. For example, we click more information. So now, as you can see, it actually goes to IANA, which is an organization, uh, internet body, uh, that manages this website, and we are being redirected to that. Okay, internet site number. This is basically, so example.com is by them if you want to test your network or internet settings. So as you can see, it has found more information. And again, we have the request and responses, this for this, and this is basically when we got redirected. And now we have the INO website. So as you can see, everything is shown on a technical level. And again, the IP of IANA website. Then this is something related to web sockets, which we won't cover again because we're just covering a brief covering website briefly. And okay, now this is very important. Actually, intercept. So what is this is that I can actually intercept, and this will actually come in handy during our penetration testing. So this is a lot of information, but as you can see, when we visit a website, and if it's even in just in this case IANA, because it's a simple website, but you could see that we just click uh, more information and it sent a lot of things behind the scenes. So a lot of things were happening behind the scenes. And when you're testing website, you sometimes you need to check what is happening, uh, in what sequence, or you want to tinker with the data. So in that case, we don't depend onto this, depend upon this, but we use the intercept option. So when I turn this on, that means every request will be intercepted, and just like a proxy work or proxy works before I forward it. So that way I can see all the things are happening in a sequence, and I can tinker with information before it reaches the web application. So I can probably get a response on my own uh, choice. And this is actually very useful in testing applications. Whenever now I press enter, so it has brought me to burp, and now my proxy has activated. So this time it won't do anything. It has not done anything because I've turned app intercept on, and every application that my browser is sending, this browser is sending, it is being intercepted by it. And only it will, I can either drop it or forward it. Drop it, as the name suggests, that I can actually drop it, and then this information won't reach the application, and then we might not have any response. Or I can forward it, which will make the application to act in the usual manner. It will give us our uh, usual response, usual response, and I can also tinker with it to get an output of my uh, own choice, but depending on what we can do with the web page. Again, because this is high level, I won't do anything. I won't, and this is just simple website, so there's actually nothing to show, nothing interesting to show here. I will just forward it, and the website is open. It was refreshing before, but not anymore. I will turn it off. Now I will go to another function. Before this, actually, this is very important. This called repeater, and I can actually, yes, okay. So basically, repeater is very good. So whenever we intercept something, for example, in this case, I have intercept on, and when I press enter, I can forward it, and before sending, I can actually send it to. I can click this and send to repeater. And what it does is that I will turn it off. It will just forward it. Page will uh, receive the request, and it should work with some time. But what it has done is that I have this. So if I'm working with a web application where I need to collect my requests and I need to tinker with it to test different responses from the application, we use the repeater. And this is something that comes very handy during the penetration testing process. So I can actually tinker with the request as much as I want and receive responses according to that. For example, I'm testing for cross-site scripting or SQL injection. I can uh, test the web page for different outcomes based on my input, and that way I can determine whether the application is vulnerable to the vulnerability or not. So when you are uh, in the testing process, when you are trying to build a methodology and trying to determine uh, what vulnerability the application is vulnerable to. For example, you are following the OS guidelines and you are doing vulnerability test for injection vulnerabilities. So you find a page and you think, okay, I can try different methods to check for SQL vulnerabilities, different type of SQL vulnerabilities, different type of cross-site scripting. So you can try accordingly, and based on the response, you can determine whether the vulnerability is present or not. For example, if I change it and just use the get for help, so will it give me anything? Okay, it has found page something, but and again you have to know what these HTTP methods mean. Uh, like it is covers from 100 to 500 basically. Uh, so these are different codes which tell you what kind of response is has happened for your requests. If it's something from server side, some issue from client side. So 302 basically means that a web page has been found, but it is not displayable. Something like that. That is something you need to look up. HTTP codes, this is something. So yes, it is redirecting us. So now we can click follow redirection, and it has taken us to this page, which we can render. So yes, just by, so as you can see, our website is here fine like that, to do anything, but just by removing the the Apple domain, we it redirected us to another page. So this is giving us the normal browser functionality, but without using the browser. And that's how we can tinker with different things. And now I can go back and again use the example domain if that was the right. And okay, 404 not found. 404 is used when a web page not found. So probably I used the wrong. Okay, it is wrong. I used the wrong name, wrong keyword. It was example domain. Okay, and I will send it again. And okay, it has found 304 modified. And but most of the time it tells you what that means for 3 not modified that. Uh, and with experience, you know what those things mean. And based on your responses, you find other information. For example, this is actually telling us that it is running Apache. So we talked before that during fingerprinting, we can use new tools to determine that. But as you can see, we can also then tinker with different requests and find that information. So this was just a, I think I still went a little bit in depth, but this was just a overview. So with the repeater, we can tinker with the request and get response to our choice without even doing anything on the problem. Intruder, this is very important. I will just mention its use. Basically, it has different tag types. And basically, this is a brute force or dictionary based password cracking, password spraying tool. And this is our target. It actually helps us in inserting different payloads. You can give them in a list or you can determine them. You can determine regular expression, things like that on the parameters of your choice. For example, this is a web page with some values. and that way we can hack them. This website does not contain anything which we can attack with intruder. But for example, if I send it to intruder, like we have this web page now in the target, so we can tinker with the application and we can just select a parameter, add it to it, and then we can add payloads at a simple list. And this is all the types and multiple amount of payloads, and that way this we can try to crack or try to look for, even we can add payloads just to check for vulnerabilities. But that is again somewhat high level for this course. uh, but the reference I will share will actually cover these things. uh, I will share a resource that is related to web application penetration testing on a practical level that will cover all of these things, so look forward to that. So intruder is basically just your built-in password cracker, password sprayer, payload sprayer, information. You can just again, it has a battering ram attack type, but it is kind of a battering ram that you just put information in it and it just throws it, sprays it on the web page. It can be used for password cracking, for credential spraying, for checking for different vulnerabilities by spraying those on different points. And then we have other things like decoder. It is built-in decoder and encoder to convert to or from different types of encodings and hash types. We have logger, basically logs everything that is being done on, and we can compare two types of data. There's a sequencer, sequencer collaborator is the option. Basically, this is limited to Burst Professional, but this also covers some time vulnerabilities. And then we have extensions. This is also something that is limited to Pro version, where we have this is the Burp App Store, and we have many extensions that can make our web application testing process easier. You can install those in Burp, uh, most probably the Pro version, and we can utilize those. So, for example, this Active Scan Plus Plus actually buffs up our Burp normal default Active Scan, which is also part of Burp Pro. So we can actually, even if we have Pro version, we can buff up our Active Scan from Burp by using this extension. And then there are a lot more other things, but that is for another day. So that was all for Burp Suite. So welcome to this video. In this video, I will just give you a brief intro of different vulnerabilities when it comes to web application testing, which are very popular. This is in no way in depth, or even you can say, even if we cover one vulnerability, when it comes to even this is no way this is in no way an in-depth one, or I won't even say it an intermediate one, just a basic brief view of different vulnerabilities. And we won't cover all of the OWASP top 10. We will just cover the some common ones, just to give you a taste of how it works, how we manually test applications for some vulnerabilities. Uh, what are the ways to utilize or exploit these vulnerabilities? But again, this course or this video, you can say, is just precursor to what I'm going to share in the resources section, in the you can say a semi conclusion section, where I will share different resources, and those are, you can say, when it comes to web application testing, uh, those are the bread and butter of web application testing, which will increase your knowledge, hopefully, God willing. So without further ado, we will start. So I have this machine. Again, this is from Hub. This is from one hub, and I've actually set it up using VirtualBox called Pentester Lab 1. This is used for OSCP. This is used for training for web applications. I won't cover every one of these vulnerabilities, and even the some I'm gonna cover, I will just cover some of those examples on a basic level, just to give you a taste. Because due to time constraints, we cannot cover everything. The amount of time, an hour or an hour and a half we have for this course, for this video, we cannot cover uh, everything pertaining to the application level, even on a breadth level. Not talking about depth level, because that is a lifelong process, but even on a breadth level, we can cover everything. So take it as an appetizer, something to motivate you guys, and uh, try to, when I'm gonna share the resources, try to benefit from them. And or willingly, hopefully, you will guys be able to increase your knowledge. And if you're interested in the field, especially web application testing, uh, those resources will help you grow more. So first we have cross-site scripting. So first we have SQL injection, and I will just cover 3 or 4 examples. So basically, what is SQL injection? SQL injection is a web application security vulnerability that occurs when an attacker can manipulate an application SQL query by injecting malicious SQL code. So what it means is that many web applications run a database called SQL database, and there are different uh, vendors for it. For example, MySQL, MS SQL, Oracle, uh, vendors like that. Okay, and all of these databases use a language called structured query language, SQL. We pronounce it SQL, or SQL, but SQL is what we pronounce it as. And how it looks like, for example, uh, in this case, this is a reflected SQL. You can say a straightforward SQL vulnerability in which I can actually see the database information. This is not an example you're going to find on most applications on or web pages, but for learning process, this is enough. So I have a database which consists of tables, records, and fields. And record is basically all the information. A field is basically the it contains different. It contains one information. For example, this ID is a field, ID field. So it has all the IDs of different users. Name is a field. Okay, root. Then the other ID user has a different name and different age. These are fields, and this one is a record. So basically, this is the record of the root user, name, ID, and age. So this table is part of the database which is being shown to us. So on the back end, a query, which is basically a SQL statement, a statement used by the SQL programming language, is working. And how it works is that basically, if I open this, it is something like that. Select all from users, which is the table name. And now I'm looking for a specific field. So in this case, because this is the query after the question mark, uh, the username, which is equal to root. So username, this is basically like this. And this is the table heading from which it could be anything, but we are assuming that it is called users. So it is, uh, we are saying when we visited the application, it is saying that look for all the information from this table where the name is root. So it has showed us all the record, all the information. It has showed us ID and age. Now, a SQL Well, SQL injection is basically when this is something that is happening on the backend, and a client or a user should not be able to tinker with it or uh, mess with it. But SQL injection is basically when we can actually uh, tinker with or mess with this SQL statement by and how we can do that is basically we have this query here. So if this code is working like this, what will happen if I add another column to it? That should cause an error because now it will the statement will be like this and it won't know what to do with this single column. And as you can see, yes, something has happened. It is not showing us anything. So that means that uh, our uh, colon is actually messing with the SQL code. And this is a sign of SQL injection. That means we can actually input code from here. In an ideal scenario, if this application was properly sanitized or there were mitigations applied for SQL injection defense, then it should not have made a difference whether we add a colon or something like that or not, because it should have rejected that, but it is not, and that's why it is vulnerable to SQL injection. So that is SQL injection in a nutshell, and now we will try to bypass it. So because this is based on SQL, you need to have some knowledge about SQL, and that's why I'm actually emphasizing on the fact that this course is just a high level overview, because there are so many things that you have to learn: web protocols, web codes, or different things work, or browser work, or servers work, client server architecture, or different requests are sent and received. All these languages and vulnerabilities work. You have to know all of these things to be a good be a good web application penetration tester. Especially people coming from Linux and networking background. Uh, this is something that is very distinct, very unique to them, something very new to them. So they need to learn it. And on the other hand, this is actually somewhat easier for people coming from developer background. But again, network penetration testing is then a bit harder for them. So that is just uh, something that we have to live with in cybersecurity, because you have to learn everything at least uh, on a level that you understand the infrastructure or how things are working, and you need to be a quick learner, a problem solver. That uh, that you if you are faced by anything new, you can uh, build you can if you have a habit, you can then develop a habit to absorb knowledge about. You need to have the commitment to spend time on it, learning it, and then develop a habit to absorb it as quickly as possible. But yes, for beginners, there are a lot of things that you need to learn on a fundamental level just to get started in the field. And web application testing, uh, knowledge about web applications is a must-have for that. So coming back to the topic, we have this and we have messed with it. So again, there's something called force, which is, if you are familiar with programming, is a statement or a switch, you can say, which if I put anything on its sides, for example, on its right and left, if one condition is true, it is a basically a conditional statement. So if one condition is true, all the statement becomes true. That is what OR does. So, and this is just a basic SQL injection we are doing. We have put 1 equals to 1 in on the right side. And what 1 equals 1 is, as you can say, it is self-evident, a true statement, basically, because 1 is always equal to 1. So we are messing with the statement, sequence statement, that we're saying that because we know we can inject SQL code into it. So we're just completing this statement. We're saying, okay, or 1 equals 1. And because this is a string, we have to actually complete it so that uh, to place the or, because this is part of SQL code, not a number, a string. So we need to put colons beside it, and then we need to put colons beside the equal statement, which is also uh, part of SQL. And for numbers, we don't need to put single quotes because numbers are taken as it is. So we're just saying it that select all from users where name equals to root or 1 equals to 1. So even if root was not present, this condition would be true because we are saying that 1 equals to 1. So because of the or, this statement is going to be true always. So that way we can cause the application to give output of our choice, because uh, by give us the output of our choice, because in any case this condition is going to be true. And what benefit can we can get from it? We can actually utilize it to give us information about not the root, just the root user, but every other, because this statement is true, gonna be true always. Now we're gonna need to manipulate it in a way that we can display the whole table to us. And for that, because this is MySQL, uh, we can comment it using double hyphen. And what it does is that it displays us the, and this is the terminator hyphen. So what it does is that it is saying that this condition is true, and now after hyphen we have commented it. So basically, show us everything. And again, I'm just covering on this on a higher level, but I think you are able to understand it. But what it will do is that it will display us the whole table. So I will just copy it. Okay, I can just add it here. Okay, I think we have. Okay, I'm sorry. In this case, we don't need to put the columns here. Yes, this is something kind of trial error. Sometimes you need put column beside or and uh, the equal statement, but sometimes you don't have to. And again, this is because the condition is true and we've commented it. So basically, we're saying that this condition is true, and by commenting it, uh, similar to in a programming language, just display everything after it because this is true. So everything that comes after it is true, and just display that to us. So as we can see, it has showed us all the information in the table, not just our root user. Uh, we have exploited it to show us all the other information, the other IDs, the other names, the other age. Actually, I won't cover example 2 or 3 because these are related to filters. And again, this is not about high level. I will cover example 4, which is this ID tab. And instead of root this time and the name, it is using its ID. So this is the same thing, but this time it's using numbers. So we don't even have to use the colon because this is just a number. We don't have to close the string, and we can just use 2 or 1 equal 1. So basically, we can again make this statement true, and this should display all of the data to us. So this is basic SQL, very basic level. This is not something you're gonna be able to try on a website and get uh, be successful. Most websites have mitigation for that. But again, this is just a brief overview, and I will share resources for it for you to uh, build expertise, not on just on SQL injection, but other vulnerabilities. Uh, all the vulnerabilities in OWASP top 10 and more, which are not uh, more a lot more than which we're gonna cover in this vulnerability, and on a more higher level than what we're gonna cover. This is just to give you a taste. So that was SQL injection. So now our second portion is cross-site scripting. This is our first example. We have a string name hacker, and this is reflected cross-site scripting. It has many other types, uh, DOM-based cross-site scripting, and things like that. So, but again, I'm gonna just cover it on a basic level. So, cross-site scripting is basically uh, we exploit the vulnerable JavaScript code or HTML code in a website. As we know, every website is made with HTML, and most of the website nowadays in the today's world use JavaScript. And JavaScript basically makes the website uh, from static to a bit dynamic. It adds alerts, buttons, things like that, which make the website very uh, dynamic and easy on the eye and very smooth, and you can say very hi-fi. But it also has its fair share of problems, and that is cross-site scripting. So we can actually insert malicious code into a website with JavaScript, and we can make it the application do anything that we want it to do, and in most cases it is malicious, and we can that way we can actually uh, make things difficult for the user of the website or any our target, and redirect them to using JavaScript. We can redirect them to a domain of our choice. We can steal their data. We can steal their bank account information. So we can do a lot of damage because of that. So on a basic level, we will erase this. How JavaScript works in a web page is basically we use the HTML tag for JavaScript, which is script. Then we have the JavaScript event, something like alert, and it has other events, alert one or alert XSS, cross-site scripting, and then we close it just like basic HTML. And whenever this field is part of our website, or if a website is able to run it, then basically it is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Many websites have JavaScript here, but they have mitigations applied in a sense that they have JavaScript, but they don't allow client or some external party to insert JavaScript code into the website. Or they have web application firewalls, which is another important concept, which basically filters our code, malicious code, looks for words like script or alert or things like that, and it does not let it through, and that way it secures the website from these kind of attacks. But because this is a basic example, we will try this and it should work here. So we will just paste it here, and I will remove the spaces just in case. And as we can see, we inserted the script tag, use the alert also, and it has showed us the alert for the of our choice, which is XSS. So this is basic reflected cross-site scripting. And I will show you another example in which it will be filtered, and it will be a little bit different. So I do the same, but this time it should not work. Why? Because it is actually looking for the script tag, uh, but it is case sensitive, so it is just looking for lower case script tag, and it is filtering it. Basically, when it goes through the web application firewall, it is looking for this and omitting it. And that's why we just have this alert XSS, because it has removed the script tag. But what if we just capitalize it? Just try capitalizing one word, one letter. Let's see what happens. And it works. So it was not case, yeah, the firewall was not insensitive. The filter was not case insensitive. So we bypassed it just by changing the letter. And this just gives you an idea. It broadens your mind about how you can bypass this filter. But this is not about that is again something very advanced. There are many ways to bypass these filters, and there are many types of accesses that the student has to know. So I'm just gonna stop here. This was just to give you a taste. So that was all for cross-site scripting. Now we come to directory traversal. So what is directory traversal? This is actually very easy to understand. This is something I've also mentioned during our exploitation phase when we were doing directory busting, that web application, just like any application, is present on a server and it is being hosted. This is the index.html page that is being hosted, the main page. And these links are just different portions of the application hosted on the server that we are accessing. So directory traversal is basically a way to exploit the permissions on the web application in such a manner that we can actually get data from the host server, because this is a file, and this is, for example, normally it is present in the in if we're talking about Linux web server Apache, it this website should be running under the var www Apache directory, for example, something like this. Yes, var www html. And here, as you can see, we have index.html. So in a normal scenario, this is where the website should be run. So directory traversal is making utilizing the faulty permissions of the website in a way that we can actually make the website display data from directories other than the web application. For example, if we can exploit it in a way that we can actually go to the root folder and then we can display the etc password directory without without even going to the console, just from here. So that is a big vulnerability, and that is what we're gonna look at on a basic level. But this is how directory traversal works in a basic level. And then again, just like with any other vulnerability, there are different mitigations that websites apply, and there are different ways to bypass those, which is again I will cover in references uh, on how you can learn about those different, how you can learn in depth about directory traversal and how you can practice those different things. You can utilize this lab also, but how you can bypass, how you can solve this example is by looking at those references and learning from it. And the references have labs of themselves. Those are good resources, so I recommend those. So this is basically, as you can see, there is no link. These are just hacker images here. So we look at the first example, and we can utilize a option called inspect element. This is present in every browser, which helps you look at the code one by one. We have this information, we can press here, and this way we can actually look at the backend of, which is basically the front end. Basically, it is not the backend, but uh, because this is all visual stuff, we can actually look the front end code of the web application. So as you can see, if we go here, this image is coming from utilizing this directory dir tray example1.php, this part of the website, and the file is hacker.php. So we can actually copy this link and we can actually go there. Okay, sorry, it already has the address, so we don't need to do this. This is basically the image, PNG image, and because we went to the link, so this is just showing the image in the textual form, and it is gibberish because it is an image, so there is no meaningful data in it. And this is the information about the image, but this is not the thing which we are concerned with. Just like we said before, we actually want to read root directory, so we can just erase this, and we can abuse this query that in a sense that we can use just like in Linux, we use dot dot forward slash to go one directory back. So we can actually, if our theory is correct and we are within the var slash www slash html directory, our application is in that, and then as we saw before, we were in the dir tref. So that means we need to use 4 of these to get to the root directory. From dir tref we go to the html, from html we go to the www, and then to this we go to the var. So now we should be at the root. And now if we from root, using the relative uh, path, we can properly access this file. Etc password, and let's see what happens. And bingo, we have the password file information from the machine without even exploiting it. And this is a big vulnerability. That means we can uh, display a lot of information. And again, if this user is not use root, which it should not be, because that means that the developer has thrown his web application under the bus, because that way we can actually also display the shadow file and password, and that is just a full mess. The website is fully vulnerable. But even if not, if even if utilizing the normal permission, which is the www data permission, also we saw that in our exploitation phase using the when we were exploiting the Digen machine. Even with those permissions, we can display this file, and we can enumerate this machine further and look for other files, and that way we can have so much information about the application and we can exploit it. So that was our example. Now I will look at another example which is quite similar to it. Again, I will inspect it. We have this information. I will copy it, paste it here again. So we have the same file, but as you can see, it is not just showing hacker.php. It is actually giving us the path. So basically, our guess was half right. It was not var www.html, but it was var www files and then hacker.png. So just by going 3 directories backward, we can go there. So in this case, where the path is given, we cannot do this. We cannot do dot dot like this, because it has already given the path, so it will always work. It won't let us go above that path if we don't include it. So we need to stop here and then we do this. We do the same thing, but we let the path here also, because for example, I cut it off and then I'll try just for proof of concept. So it does not display anything. So it is not letting us use the relative path without using the absolute path it has given. And now it should work. Okay, we went from We also missed a forward slash between this. Yes. So again, by using the absolute path and then the relative path, we were able to get the information. And again, this is just a high level overview. So don't expect to become a full web application penetration tester. Just by learning these examples, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I won't even call it the tip. I will call it like just a minuscule portion of the whole ocean that is web application penetration testing. But this is a good point to start. So that was all for directory traversal. So now we will look at an example of command injection. This is gonna be our final vulnerability. We have many more, yes, but again, due to time constraint, we cannot cover all this, and it is gonna be. I think it is for someone beginning in the field. These are enough, and but if you want to pursue it more, I'm gonna share the references, and in your free time or after you finish with this course, you can look at those references, those resources, and you can improve your knowledge. And if you stay committed to those references, those resources, work on the labs and the knowledge base, I'm sure there's nothing that is gonna stop you from becoming a good web application penetration tester. Again, practice, 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 and keep on learning. This is our last example. So this is very simple. It is basically showing us output from a command. So basically this application is displaying us the console information. So from our local host or machine. So this is connected to the machine. And as we can see, it has done a ping. It is doing a ping and ping command and it is showing us the information. So we can actually utilize it to get information of our choice by injecting Linux command on it. So because there is already command ping command working, we cannot just use a command. For example, we have the ID command, we can just not use it. It won't show us anything because on the back end, this is actually causing a problem. For example, I had this ping command for local host. So we have the same output just like in here. But if I want to exploit it to add an ID command with it, you can say that using, because the ping is already there, ping command is already there, this is going to just mess up and we won't have any response. So there are three ways to run two commands together, which is the key basic command injection that we can use this. And what it does is that it completes the first command by putting the semicolon, we terminate the first command, and then any command we write after that is taken at the second. So it will run the ping command and then the ID. So after the ping command is over, and in this case, it is not going to be over because this is Linux. So we just cancel it, and you can say you can see that it has showed us the ID command, the output of the ID command. There's another way, which is using the AND. AND means that if both are true, the output of both are true. So the output of first is true, then run the second. So what that means that if the first command is correct, then the second will run. And because the first is correct, it runs the second one. For example, if it was ping locally something, now it is wrong. So it should not run the ID command. Yes, because the output of first was incorrect, ID did not run. So that is the function of AND. First should be true for this to be true. This is true in either case. First either false if it's wrong or right. This is gonna work. And then we have the third option, which is OR. And this is if first is false, then run the second. So as you can see, first was true, so it did not show us anything. But if I do this, match it up, ping did not run, but the idea. So we have three use cases, and depending on our use case, depending on as you have gotten some idea that if we have a command injection, but it is uh, not letting us uh, input the command in a way that we can use the terminator, then we can experiment with or and based on the command output and get our output. So in this case, it is very simple. We can just use the terminator and ID, and it has shown us the ID. And we can also use the other examples. We can use and because first is true, it is gonna show us the ID. That is not working. Let's try this temper with the number. Okay, so basically our this is because this is the basic, it is not executing these two, but for learning purposes, I've shown you how these things work. So in some cases, the terminator statement won't work. So in that case, you can work you use those. But in this case, because this is normally working, and I think it has filters for or and, so that's why it's not showing the out ID command for those. But here, this is working. So this was a basic way to do command injections. I will cover the other examples because those might be overwhelming for you guys. So that was all for the practical demonstration. That was again a very basic demonstration, just the tip of the iceberg. So for beginner, for amateurs who have no knowledge about web application testing, uh, they can they can get little understanding about these vulnerabilities. But now I will close it and we now uh, have come to the, you can say, the conclusion part or part where I share the references and resources related to web application testing. So there are two important resources which I'm going to share. First is a fully theoretical one, but it is something, it is a book actually. It is a book actually that I will recommend you guys, anybody who is interested in cybersecurity, generally application related cybersecurity and application testing, that they should read this book not once but twice or thrice, cover to cover. Not just me, big bug bounty hunters and application hackers such as Jason Haddix. You can look that guy up. Uh, he has a penetration testing methodology. That is actually another resource that you can look at. He has videos on YouTube about that. But he's a renowned hacker, app application tester that has worked on Fortune 500 companies. So you can, not my word, but you can take this as his word that you need to read this book. And it is called the Web Application Hackers Handbook. And this is the second edition. So this is a book, and you can also get the PDF for them, but this is the PDF. This is the book cover, second edition. Uh, it is somewhat old, but that is just, it was published in 2011. But don't fret about that. Uh, the knowledge and information in this book, even to this day, is very crucial for upcoming web application testers. If you want to understand web applications on a basic level, on a fundamental level, on smoothly, if you have just have a strong background on web application testing, You need to read this book. This is not even recommended. I'll say this is a must. It can, this is the difference between, it can make the difference between you becoming just a so-so penetration tester, web application tester, or a good penetration tester. And this has helped me a lot in my endeavors. This is basically the first edition, so I won't recommend that, but you guys need to get the second edition. For example, we have GitHub. You can either buy it or you can get it for free from things like people have resources for books. So you need to read this book. Yes, I'll download. It has downloaded, yes. So this is the book. This is the second edition, which is probably the latest one. There was no edition after that, but I cannot emphasize it enough. So it covers everything: application security, core defense mechanism, how technologies work, how we can map the application. It also covers pursuit on a basic scale. But suit has come a long way after that since, but still the main things it covers, and it will help you a lot when building your methodology and how to hack websites. And again, it covers many things: bypassing, client-side control, authentication, different thing, cross-site scripting, and all the other things that we have not covered. We've just scratched the tip of the iceberg. But this book will make you a good web application, not just a good, but a fine web application tester if you follow it to the core. And it will just open your mind. So we have discussed many things here which we could not actually discuss in detail, but this book covered all of those. I talked about HTTP request response codes, URL, REST APIs. We have not talked about those cookies, status codes, functionality, different encoding schemes, URL encoding. I mentioned something like that, HTML encoding. Base 64, we covered that in our exploitation portion. Spidering, we talked about spidering, crawling, and all of these things are covered in this book. So I cannot emphasize it enough. And the other resource, and we already got a hint of that, and that is Portsfigure. And Portsfigure is basically the company that has created WebSoup. So these are just top of the top guys in the cybersecurity industry uh, who work on the WebSoup tool, and they have done a lot of great things in the field. And a great one of those great things is that they actually have an academy called the Portsfigure Academy. You can make an account on that on for free, and they have learning paths, and you can actually learn about different vulnerabilities. And they actually also have labs, free labs on all of the various vulnerabilities, SQL injection, and the labs are divided into different levels. For example, this is beginner, apprentice level, uh, practitioner, which is intermediate, and then some have, this is cross-site scripting, some have expert level, and they are just adding different labs from time. They add different labs and different topics. This is something we do not cover because this is expensive. As you can see, there's just so much things we do not didn't have time to cover, and but there's so much to learn. And that's this not only makes web application penetration testing a bit challenging, not just web application, any pen testing challenging, because cybersecurity in general is challenging because everything is just you have to learn a lot, learn a lot of things. Nothing is simple, everything is in depth, but it also makes it worthwhile and rewarding. Directly reversal or part reversal, we just covered a simple case, but we have so much lab. So they don't only have labs, but they also you can just view the path, and they have all the information you can get. For example, SQL injection, you can press get started, and they want me to log in, but uh, I think we can like guess they have changed it in a way that I think we can access information without making account. So this is something you can check on your own. For example, here we have the different topics, SQL injection, and you can go to those topics and learn about. For example, this, yes. So this is this page. Uh, this website has all the information related to different vulnerabilities, and it is made in a way that is very easy to understand. And because of the labs and with enough practice, beginners can get a good understanding of these different vulnerabilities. What is SQL injection? How to find and exploit different type of SQL injection vulnerabilities? How to prevent SQLi? So they have videos on it. There's a lot of information we didn't have time to cover. Again, the SQL query, just like we did. But as you can see, there's a lot of information, and we just could not cover it due to time constraints. But you have some idea, you have some starting point. Uh, you won't be flustered when you start on these labs now, but it's just what we have covered is just not even 1%. So there are a lot of different types and there are a lot of in-depth things that you have to learn. So I recommend you guys to make an account on here if you're interested and read the book I have mentioned. Make account here, learn about different vulnerabilities in detail, and because this is from the Burp Suite Creator Sports Figure, this is always up to date. They also have their own web application certification, which is pretty good. So they have a lot of credibility in the field, and I will recommend you guys to learn from here and learn about different vulnerabilities, do the labs that you can also, if you want to get into the field, become a good web application tester, you want to be credible, you want to be known, you can, by doing those labs, you can actually, by doing those labs, you can actually, uh, you will get, if you make an account, you will, by solving those labs, you will get different rewards depending on how much labs you're gonna solve. And you can also show that thing on your LinkedIn or on any of your social profiles, portfolios, and that is just extra cloud. So not only you're learning for free, you are getting practice for free in the form of labs, but you also get professional value out of uh, these particular labs by building a portfolio which shows that you know what you are doing and you are a good web application tester, at least on a technical level. Yes, nothing can uh, replace the experience you get in the field, and that is just something you can only get when you are in the field. But before that, it is just it is nothing is better than getting as much technical and theoretical experience knowledge you can have, you can get in the field. So these are the two resources that I think can make you a good, not just a good web application tester, it can also make increase your credibility and professional portfolio. So I will end the video uh, at that, and we will just have a, I guess we won't have a conclusion section, a theoretical conclusion section in this for this video. This is the conclusion. So I don't think I have to share anything more. I don't have to say anything more about this module. This was one of the most high level modules in this course. In other portions, we actually uh, had things we could actually test things on a intermediate, or you can say more than a high. We can on some depth level, but because of the distinct nature of application testing, we could not do the same with this module. So I hope you guys take what I've given you in this module, build upon it, and follow the resources I have shared. Uh, if you're interested, comment on them and learn from them, build upon on them also, and there's just no doubt that you will become a good web application tester. I'm sure of that. So actually, I lied. about not having a slide way to conclusion, because although we have covered everything related to web app pen testing uh, with respect to our course, of course, you're gonna look at the resources I've shared and build upon them. But this is as far as the course is concerned, it's not over, because in the next module we will look at wireless penetration testing and how we can crack a WPA to PSK Wi-Fi network. So for not the last time, happy hacking.